In 1955, 15-year-old Elvis told his friends he'd be a movie star someday. They laughed at him. That night, he went home and practiced acting in front of his bedroom mirror where no one could see. A year later, Hollywood came calling. But the dream had started in ridicule. It was a Saturday afternoon in September 1955, and Elvis Presley stood outside the Strand Theater in Memphis with 4 of his high school classmates. They'd just watched Rebel Without a Cause starring James Dean, and Elvis was mesmerized. The movie had blown his mind. James Dean's raw intensity, his vulnerability, the way he could communicate so much emotion without saying a word. Elvis had never seen anything like it. "Man, that was incredible," Elvis said as they walked down the street. His friends were already moving on to talk about football and girls, but Elvis couldn't stop thinking about what he'd just seen. "Did you see how Dean did that scene in the police station?" Elvis continued, excited. The way he looked at his parents, you could feel everything he was feeling. His friend Bobby rolled his eyes. "It's just a movie, Elvis. Come on, let's go get burgers." But Elvis wasn't done. Something had ignited in him watching James Dean on that massive screen, a possibility he hadn't fully considered before. "I'm going to do that someday," Elvis said, stopping on the sidewalk. "I'm going to be in movies. I'm going to be a movie star." His friends stopped and turned to look at him. For a moment, there was silence. Then Bobby started laughing. The others joined in. "You?" Bobby said between laughs. "Elvis, you're a truck driver, and you play guitar at the Eagle's Nest on weekends for tips. Movie stars are different. They're special. They're not from Tupelo, Mississippi." "James Dean was from Indiana," Elvis said defensively. "Yeah, but he went to acting school in New York. He studied. You barely graduated high school. No offense, man, but movie stars don't come from places like this." Another friend, Tommy, chimed in. "Plus, you gotta be realistic. You sing pretty good, I'll give you that. But acting? That's a whole different thing. You need training, connections, money. We're just regular guys from Memphis. We're not Hollywood material." Elvis felt his face burning. He wanted to argue back, to defend his dream, but he didn't know how. He had no training, no connections, no plan, just a feeling that had hit him watching James Dean transform into someone else on that screen. "You guys go ahead," Elvis said quietly. "I'm going to walk home." As his friends headed to the burger joint, still laughing about Elvis the movie star, Elvis walked the 3 miles back to his family's small apartment in Lauderdale Courts, his mind racing. That night, after his parents went to bed, Elvis stood in front of the small mirror in the bathroom, the only place in the apartment where he could have privacy. He studied his face. He tried to recreate the expressions James Dean had made, the brooding intensity, the vulnerable pain, the rebellious anger. He felt ridiculous. He looked ridiculous, but something inside him wouldn't let it go. Elvis had been practicing guitar in secret for years, teaching himself from watching other musicians, learning from the blues players on Beale Street. He knew how to work on something alone, in private, where no one could laugh at him. Acting would be the same. He'd teach himself. Over the next months, Elvis developed a secret practice routine. Every night after his parents slept, he'd go to the bathroom or sit in the kitchen with the lights low, and he'd practice. He'd read lines from movie magazines out loud, trying different emotions. He'd watch himself in the mirror, studying how his face changed with different feelings. He'd practice the vulnerability he'd seen in James Dean, the intensity, the way Dean could be both tough and fragile at the same time. He practiced moving like Dean moved, that loose, dangerous walk, the way Dean would suddenly snap from calm to explosive emotion, the stillness before the storm. Elvis knew his friends were right about one thing. He had no formal training. But he'd never had formal music training either, and that hadn't stopped him from developing his own style. During the day, Elvis drove his truck for Crown Electric Company. At night, he played small gigs with Scotty Moore and Bill Black, developing the rockabilly sound that would eventually make him famous. And in the dead of night, alone in the mirror, he practiced being someone else. Gladys sometimes caught him. "Baby, what are you doing up so late?" she'd ask, finding him in the kitchen at 2 a.m., making faces at his reflection. "Just thinking, Mama. Can't sleep." She never pressed him for details. She'd learned long ago that her son had big dreams that didn't make sense to other people. In July 1954, Elvis recorded That's All Right at Sun Records. The song became a regional hit. By early 1955, Elvis was performing regularly, building a following across the South. The music career his friends had dismissed was actually happening. But Elvis never forgot about the movie dream. Even as his music career took off, he kept practicing in mirrors, kept studying actors, kept believing that somehow, someday, Hollywood would notice him. In November 1955, Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, started getting inquiries from Hollywood producers who'd heard about this young singer causing riots at teenage concerts. They wanted to know if Elvis could act. Parker, seeing dollar signs, said yes without asking Elvis if it was true. When Parker told Elvis about the movie interest, Elvis felt his heart race. "They want me to screen test?" "Several studios do. But Elvis, I need to know, can you actually act? Because if you embarrass yourself in Hollywood, it could hurt the music career too." Elvis thought about all those nights in front of the mirror, all those hours practicing emotions and expressions where no one could see. "I can act," Elvis said with a confidence he wasn't sure he felt. In March 1956, Elvis did a screen test for Paramount Pictures for a Western called The Reno Brothers, later renamed Love Me Tender. The director, Robert Webb, was skeptical. A rock and roll singer playing a dramatic role? It seemed like a publicity stunt. But when Elvis performed his test scenes, something unexpected happened. The vulnerability he'd learned from watching James Dean, the intensity he'd practiced in those midnight mirror sessions, the raw emotion he naturally had, it all came together. Elvis wasn't technically perfect. He hadn't been trained, but he had something that couldn't be taught, genuine feeling. When the camera was on him, he forgot to be nervous. He became the character. Robert Webb called the studio executives after the test. "I don't know how, but this kid can act. It's rough, unpolished, but it's real. There's something there." In August 1956, Elvis began filming Love Me Tender. He was 21 years old and terrified. The first day on set, Elvis felt like an imposter. All around him were real actors, people who'd studied at prestigious schools, who'd done Broadway, who knew what they were doing. And here he was, a truck driver from Memphis who'd taught himself by staring at a bathroom mirror. During a break, one of the older actors, Richard Egan, found Elvis sitting alone, looking overwhelmed. "First movie?" Egan asked kindly. "Yes, sir. I don't really know what I'm doing." Egan sat down beside him. "Can I tell you a secret? Half the people out here don't know what they're doing either. They just pretend really well. You've got something most of them don't have: authenticity. Don't try to act like you think actors should act. Just be real. That's all acting is, being truthful in imaginary circumstances." Elvis thought about Bobby and Tommy and all his friends who'd laughed when he said he'd be a movie star. He thought about the nights in front of the mirror, teaching himself, believing in something that seemed impossible. "I used to practice in front of a mirror," Elvis admitted to Egan. "Late at night when everyone was asleep. I didn't have money for acting classes or anything. I just tried to figure it out myself." Egan smiled. "You know who else did that? James Dean. He practiced alone for years before anyone took him seriously. Some of the best actors are the ones who taught themselves because they wanted it bad enough to work without an audience." When Love Me Tender was released in November 1956, the reviews were mixed. Some critics praised Elvis's natural screen presence. Others said he was rough and unpolished. Many compared him to James Dean, noting the similar vulnerability and intensity. Elvis read every review, the good and the bad. The comparisons to James Dean, who died in a car accident a year earlier, felt surreal. James Dean had been the inspiration for this whole journey. A week after the movie's release, Elvis was back in Memphis for a brief visit. He ran into Bobby, his old high school friend who'd laughed at his movie star dream. Bobby was awkward, embarrassed. "Hey, Elvis, I saw your movie. It was really good, man." "Thanks," Elvis said simply. "Look, I wanted to say, remember that day outside the Strand? When you said you'd be a movie star and we all laughed? I remember. I'm sorry, man. We were jerks. We didn't believe in you. But you did it anyway. Elvis shook his head. You know what? You guys laughing at me might have been the best thing that happened, because it meant I had to prove it to myself first. I couldn't rely on other people believing in me. I had to believe in me enough for all of us. Bobby looked confused. What do you mean? I went home that night and started practicing, every night for over a year, alone in front of a mirror where nobody could see me. If you guys had encouraged me, I might have gotten cocky and stopped working. But because you laughed, I knew I had to work twice as hard to prove you wrong. Elvis smiled. So thank you. Thank you for not believing. It made me believe harder. Over the next decade, Elvis would make 31 movies. Some were great, many were mediocre, a few were terrible. But he'd done it. The truck driver from Tupelo had become a Hollywood movie star. Critics would debate his acting ability for decades. Some said he was underrated, that Hollywood never gave him roles that showcased his real potential. Others said he was just a singer pretending to act. But Elvis knew something they didn't. He'd earned his place on that screen. Not through connections or luck or even natural talent. He'd earned it through countless nights of practice that no one saw, work that no one applauded, belief that no one shared. In 1970, during a documentary interview, Elvis was asked about his acting career. The interviewer noted that some people felt Elvis had wasted his potential in Hollywood, that he should have stuck to music. Elvis thought for a moment before answering. When I was 15, I walked out of a James Dean movie and told my friends I'd be a movie star someday. They laughed at me. Not mean-spirited, but they just couldn't see it. I was a poor kid from Mississippi. Movie stars were from a different world, he continued. But I went home and I practiced every night, alone. And you know what I learned? Dreams die when you need other people to believe in them for you. Dreams survive when you believe in them enough to work on them alone, in the dark, where no one's watching. Did I become the actor I wanted to be? Elvis paused. I became a working actor. I made movies that people enjoyed. I learned and grew. That 15-year-old kid who got laughed at would be pretty amazed by what happened. So yeah, I'm proud of that. After Elvis died in 1977, his early mentor Scotty Moore was interviewed about Elvis's various talents. The interviewer asked if Elvis had ever talked about his acting ambitions. All the time, Scotty said. But here's what people don't know. Elvis used to practice acting in dressing rooms before concerts. He'd try out different characters, different voices. He took it seriously. It wasn't just something Colonel Parker pushed him into. Elvis wanted it, Scotty continued. One time I asked him why he cared so much about acting when his music career was going so well. He said, "When I was a kid, everyone told me what I couldn't do. I want to prove that I can do anything I set my mind to, not for them. For that 15-year-old kid who got laughed at." Today, film critics and Elvis historians still debate the quality of his movies. Some argue that Hollywood wasted his talent on formulaic musicals. Others point to his natural screen presence in films like King Creole and Flaming Star as evidence of real dramatic ability. But perhaps the most important legacy of Elvis's acting career isn't in the films themselves. It's in the lesson that dreams are worth pursuing even when, especially when, people laugh at them. Bobby, the friend who laughed at Elvis's movie star dream outside the Strand Theater, kept that memory with him for life. In an interview in the 1980s, he reflected on it. "I learned something from Elvis that day," Bobby said. "I learned that the people who achieve impossible things are the ones who don't wait for permission to dream. They don't need you to believe. They believe enough for everybody. And they work on their dreams in private, where mockery can't reach them." He added, "I've thought about that day 1,000 times, not just because Elvis became famous, but because of what it taught me about my own dreams. How many times had I given up on something because someone laughed? How many dreams did I abandon because I needed other people to believe first?" The story of Elvis and his movie star dream reminds us that the path to achieving the impossible begins with being willing to look foolish, with practicing in mirrors where no one can see, with believing in something everyone else thinks is unrealistic. Somewhere in Memphis, there's probably a teenager right now telling friends about an impossible dream. And probably those friends are laughing. That teenager has a choice: give up because of the laughter, or go home and start practicing in private, building skills in the dark, believing when no one else does. Elvis chose the second path. From the Strand Theater to the stages of Sun Records to the sound stages of Hollywood, it all started with a dream that seemed ridiculous to everyone except the dreamer. And sometimes, that's exactly how the impossible becomes possible. One person believing hard enough to work alone, in secret, until they're ready to prove the doubters wrong. Not to hurt them or shame them, but simply to show that the kid everyone laughed at was right all along. If this story of secret dreams and quiet determination moved you, subscribe and share it. Have you ever practiced something in private because you were afraid of being judged? Let us know in the comments. Hit that notification bell for more true stories about the dreams we pursue when no one's watching.